What's up, people? It's your girl Adeola. So, Nigerian presidential election is coming. Hello, it's here. It's almost here. And I'm like, you know what? Let's take a good look at some of the popular candidates that will be running for presidency. Of course, there are so many people that are running. Good luck to all of them. But 3 people are very popular, and I think we should take a look at their past record. What have they done when they were in office? The good things as well as the bad things, just to help us to make better informed decisions. Now, keep in mind, I am not sponsored by anybody. APC did not sponsor me, and PDP did not sponsor me either. I beg you, I am not endorsing any candidate. There's nothing that I will say today that you cannot find for yourself if you do your own research. I have never met any of these candidates except Mr. Jonathan, and you can be rest assured that he's not sponsoring me. I just want to make sure that we don't just vote for anybody this time around, especially based on religious sentiment, because a lot of people have already made up their mind that no, he's a Christian, he has to do it, he has to be there. No, he's a Muslim, he has to be there. I said, shoot, people. Also, I like to note that APC will soon hold a primary election, so eventually only one candidate will emerge from APC to face Mr. President in PDP. So let's start with the APC candidates. First of all, meet former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. He's 67 years old. He married 5 wives and divorced one of them so that he would have 4 wives. So now he has 4 wives and he has 30 children. He was vice president for 8 years, and here are some good things that he did. Atiku is one of the key founders of PDP, the People's Democratic Party, which is now the biggest political party in Africa. And this PDP was actually the one that brought Obasanjo out of prison and made him a presidential candidate. So a lot of people believe that without Atiku, there wouldn't have been PDP. So that's one good thing that he did. And as a vice president, he introduced a number of initiatives, such as the National Poverty Eradication Program, NAPEP. It has failed now, but he introduced it. And also, he was part of the formation of Universal Basic Education Program. And then he also organized an industrial roundtable, and he advocated for the revival of education in northern Nigeria. Atiku also founded American University of Nigeria. It's a very good university, and recently he gave scholarship to some of the Chibok girls that escaped Boko Haram. Unfortunately, I couldn't find many good things that Atiku did when he was vice president, so I'm not being partial if I say more of the good things that other people have done. It's just because that's all that I could find about him. Now let's talk about the not so good things about Atiku. There are more than a dozen counts of corruption charges against him. Just keep in mind that Atiku has denied all these charges. He says that they are all politically motivated by the former president Olusegun Obasanjo through the EFCC. Now, some of the charges include embezzlement of public funds as well as money laundering. There was a time Atiku and one of his wives, Jennifer Douglas Atiku, were accused of laundering more than $40 million, Nigeria's money, to the US. He's also been accused of diverting about $125 million of public funds into private projects. There was also a time that he was accused of diverting $6 million from the Special Petroleum Fund that was directly under his supervision at that time into iGate company in Louisville, Kentucky. And as a matter of fact, a US congressman that was involved in that case had been sentenced to 13 years in prison. The man is in prison right now. Now, there are allegations that he received more than $4.6 million in bribes from the German company called Siemens. The FBI also raided the house of Atiku in Maryland, and his wife fled to Nigeria. Now, Atiku was never officially indicted for these crimes, both in Nigeria or the US, and he has denied it several times, but people are saying that these things are true. Now, Atiku has a $1 million house in Potomac in Maryland, which he has abandoned since the issue of his corruption case in the US surfaced. Now, the next person on the list, also representing APC, is the former military head of state, Major General Muhammadu Buhari. He is 71 years old, and his first wife passed away in 2006. He's presently married to 1 wife and now has 7 children. Now, I found out so many things about Buhari that I'm hoping that you guys will bear with me. It's a lot. Now, before Muhammadu Buhari took over power, Shagari's administration was known for extreme corruption, waste of resources, mismanagement, and lack of sanitation. Corruption was celebrated at that time, just like it is today, and we were having religious and political violence. Now, Buhari took over power in a military coup on December 31st of 1983, and he was in power for less than 2 years. Now, here are some good things that Buhari did. Him and his chief of general staff of the time, Tunde Idiagbon, originally from Ilorin, Kwara State, both of them, they arrested so many corrupt politicians. In fact, I heard that they arrested hundreds of of corrupt officials and they put them all in prison. Many ministers were convicted in military courts and jailed. Everybody that had questionable wealth at that time became afraid to show it off because there was zero tolerance for corruption. Buhari also launched the famous war against indiscipline, which means zero tolerance for indiscipline in Nigeria. So it became a crime at that time for people to rush into buses. If anybody tried to rush in the bus, soldiers would be there to beat them up. So people were forced to start lining up. Nigerians became orderly. Nobody could cut lines, even in banks. So everything became first come, first serve. It's not a matter of who you know. And everybody obeyed the traffic laws. No one was allowed to drive on the wrong side of the road. Students were forbidden from cheating. Sellers were prevented from suddenly raising the price of commodity in order to make quick gain. Showing up late for work was no longer accepted. Everyone was getting to work on time. In fact, neglecting your children also became a crime at that time. Buhari and Adeola also introduced the famous environmental sanitation, so it became a crime to litter in public places and all the parks had to be clean. It paid up all our debt. Nigeria had no debt whatsoever. In fact, during his time, inflation rate came down from 23% to 5%. The Nigerian naira was so strong at that time. Also, drug trafficking was minimal during Buhari's time because Buhari was actually executing drug dealers. Now, before becoming the head of state, from 1976 to 78, he was the petroleum minister under President Obasanjo. Buhari was also the head of the NNPC when it was first created. At that time, Buhari built 3 oil refineries, one in Port Harcourt, one in Warri, and one in Kaduna. Nigeria was refining our own oil. We were not exporting our oil to refine, and we were exporting fuel. Buhari also masterminded the construction of 20 oil depots throughout Nigeria, laying over 3,200 kilometers of pipelines. Also, during Abacha's time, Buhari was appointed as the chairman of the Petroleum Trust Development Fund, controlling billions of dollars excess fund, and to his credit, the PTF was managed with transparency. For the years that it existed, PTF published its annual report on time, and they always addressed press conferences to respond to issues that are arising from the reports. And during that time, Buhari used the excess funds to construct roads all across Nigeria. I found out that in the 4 years that he was in charge of PTF, they constructed more roads all across Nigeria than the Nigerian government has constructed in the last 15 years. Now, the PTF under Buhari also supplied textbooks and learning materials for students nationwide, and they supplied drugs for hospitals. And lastly, they rehabilitated our mass transit system, supplying public buses. Buhari was the one that discovered the late Professor Dora Akunyili, and he was actually the one that nominated her for her position in NAFDAC. Also, Buhari was the first head of state or president to put women in cabinet. Buhari is the only Nigerian former head of state or former president with no foreign bank account that we know of, and also the only one with no assets abroad. Well, Goodluck Jonathan said he doesn't have foreign bank account, but no one has really investigated that. Buhari also has one house in Kaduna and one in his hometown. He doesn't have any house in Abuja or any land. He has no oil rigs and currently lives on pension. As a matter of fact, he wasn't getting paid when he worked as the head of the Petroleum Development Trust Fund because he was already getting his pension at that time, so he refused, which is why he couldn't even afford the 27 million naira presidential nomination fund. He had to take a loan from the bank. Now, Buhari has never been convicted of any crime, despite the fact that various tribunals had been set up by Obasanjo and by Babangida to investigate Buhari, yet he's never been convicted of embezzling 1 naira. Of course, people accuse Buhari of stealing money, but none of them have been able to prove it. Oh, one other thing, when Buhari was the head of state, he stood up against the West when they were trying to meddle in our business. The IMF and the World Bank pressured Buhari to devalue naira because naira was really strong at that time. It was already 1 naira to $2. In fact, at that time, Nigerians were able to spend naira when they go outside Nigeria. So they felt that naira would be competing with the dollar and other major currencies. And they didn't like that, especially coming from an African country. So they also told Buhari that he should borrow money from the IMF. But Buhari refused. Instead, he focused on paying off our debt. So the IMF and the World Bank cut Nigeria from World Trade Organization. So Buhari resorted to trade by barter. We were giving oil in exchange for goods from Brazil, from Austria, Canada, France, Germany, anybody that would trade with us. So Western interests actually were the ones that sponsored Babangida to overthrow Buhari and devalue Naira. Naira went down like suddenly. Of course, Babangida cooperated because Buhari was about to retire him, from what I found out, because Babangida had allegedly been involved in some drug-related issues. Now, let's talk about the some not-so-good things about Buhari. When Buhari was jailing corrupt officials, he also jailed some people that were actually innocent. They were later released, but many people were thrown in prison before they were proven whether guilty or not guilty. Also, because Buhari sentenced some drug dealers to death, a lot of people found that as extreme. In fact, some people say that Buhari is crazy and radical. Also, there was a time that Buhari hired an Israeli to kidnap Umaru Diko. That's one of the most corrupt officials during Shehu Shagari's time. And he escaped to the UK when Buhari took over power. Buhari had him kidnapped in the UK. He hired an Israeli. They kidnapped him and they put him in coma. And then they hid him in a suitcase. They were bringing him back to Nigeria to serve jail time in a suitcase. And then they got busted at the airport. So yeah, Buhari can be crazy. Also, Buhari jailed some journalists under what they call Decree 4. He announced at that time that any journalists that write articles that they could not back up with evidence will be jailed, and he jailed some journalists for about 4 months. His argument was that he was trying to prevent libel. And of course, you know, jailing journalists is always a human right violation. Also, when he awarded contracts to build roads when he was the head of PTF, he awarded those contracts allegedly mainly to his friends. Another issue is that many people were saying that most of the roads were constructed in northern Nigeria. Also, when he was the head of state, he stopped the Lagos railway construction at that time, and his argument is that Nigeria was borrowing money to do this construction and that he needed to stop all the borrowing and think about how to pay the debt first. Also, people say that Buhari is stubborn. I say, heck yeah, he is. I mean, this man has contested for presidency 3 consecutive times already, and this is his 4th time? Yeah, he must be really stubborn. Now, some people are also saying that Buhari is too strict. He's too disciplined. So a lot of corrupt people don't want him to run again because they're saying he may get rid of them. And you know, he is really strict. In fact, there was a time that he went abroad for a military training. He was sponsored at that time by the Nigerian government. And when he came back to Nigeria, he returned the remnant of his stipend. And don't forget that when Babangida took over power, he put Buhari in prison for about 3.5 years. And when Buhari came out of the prison, he found out that his wife had been collecting financial support from Babangida while Buhari was away. And guess what he did? He divorced her. The woman passed away in 2006, but he divorced her because he felt like she had compromised. So there are speculations among so many Christians that Buhari is a Muslim fanatic and that he wants to Islamize Nigeria. This to me is a misconception because Babangida was actually the one that made Nigeria a member of the OIC. That's the Organization of Islamic Conference. When Buhari was the head of state, religion was never an issue. Again, I'm not campaigning for Buhari, but I'm just trying to address that issue of Islamizing Nigeria. There was no religious violence during Buhari's time, not even once. Him and his vice president at that time, Idi Agbon, they were both Muslims, yet they did not Islamize Nigeria. He actually had a Christian running mate in 2011 that was Pastor Tunde Bakari, and I know that his personal driver of 10 years is a Christian, as well as his cook. Let's take a look at the third candidate representing PDP. That's His Excellency, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. He is 56 years old and he has 1 wife and 2 children. Jonathan had been a deputy governor as well as a governor, a vice president before becoming the president. He's been in power for almost 6 years now. He served the remaining 2 years that Yaradua was supposed to serve, and he's now going to complete his 4th year in office, making 6 years. Now, let's take a look at the good things that he did in the last 6 years. Airports were repainted in Nigeria. Several airports were repainted. We now have air-conditioned trains in Lagos as well as light rail in Abuja. He's also constructing trains to link cities and states together. He also fixed the Benin Ore Express Road. He privatized electricity, and he sent some Nigerian students abroad to study on government scholarship. After privatizing electricity, some parts of Nigeria claim to have seen an improvement in the electricity supply. Jonathan also claims to have created 1 million jobs, and he said that he reduced poverty by 50%. Unfortunately, the claim that he created 1 million jobs has not been verified. No one has really seen where these jobs are, and there is no substantial evidence that he actually reduced poverty by 50%. According to calculations, he actually reduced it by 5%. Also, because of Jonathan's agricultural transformation agenda, Nigeria's food import bill has reduced from about $7 billion to $4.3 billion annually. He also set aside 50 billion naira for agriculture mechanization fund. And under Jonathan, Nigeria now has Africa's largest rice mill. Also, this last weekend, the federal government announced under President Jonathan that they've reached a ceasefire agreement with Boko Haram, stating that the Chibok girls will be released. Let's look at some not so good things about President Goodluck Jonathan. His administration has been marred by various corruption charges. Not a single person has been successfully prosecuted since Jonathan became president. Not only that, a lot of evidently corrupt people are actually being celebrated in Nigeria during Jonathan's time. For example, former aviation minister Stella Odua allegedly spent $2.5 million on bulletproof cars. She stepped down 4 months after, but she was never prosecuted. Now she's a chief in her hometown. Also, the former House Speaker Farouk Lawan and Femi Otedola got away with $600,000 bribe scandal. Despite audio and video evidence, they got away till today. And those who embezzled the police pension fund, billions of naira, are still enjoying the stolen money. They were taken to court, out of court. No one has been successfully prosecuted for embezzling the police pension fund. President Goodluck Jonathan actually pardoned Alamasia, a convicted felon, the former governor of Bayelsa, who stole millions of dollars, taxpayers' money. Even though Alamasia served his prison term, Mr. Jonathan gave him a presidential pardon. Now, during Mr. Jonathan's administration, $49 billion went missing in the Nigerian treasury. Later, they said that it's only $20 billion. Instead of finding the money, Mr. Jonathan decided to suspend the whistleblower, that's the CBN governor, Lamido Sanusi. Jonathan is also the first Nigerian president to own so many private jets, about 10 of them. He has so far refused to declare his assets publicly. During Jonathan's time, Boko Haram killed more than 13,000 Nigerians and displaced more than 3 million people. Also, more than 200 girls were kidnapped for 6 months under President Jonathan. We've borrowed about $10 billion since President Jonathan became president from China, from other places, and he's the first Nigerian president to budget $1 billion naira for food inside Aso Rock. He also removed oil subsidy, raising the price of oil overnight by more than 200%, which caused a national protest. And speaking of oil, his petroleum minister, Ms. Alison Madueke, had been accused of diverting oil wealth for her own personal use to rent private jets and stuff like that. But Mr. Jonathan is yet to do anything about all that. Also, during Mr. Jonathan's time, 75% of our graduates are unemployed. And Mr. Jonathan publicly endorsed stomach infrastructure, which is feeding people, giving them bags of rice so that they would vote for you. Also, under President Jonathan, a number of journalists have been summoned by the SSS and also arrested. Before becoming the president, Mr. Jonathan actually diverted $1 million Bayelsa's Poverty Alleviation Fund into entertainment, using it to pay Beyonce when she came to perform in his state. So that is some of what I know about the three main presidential candidates. Again, I'm not being sponsored by any of them and I'm not endorsing any of them. I just want to make sure that Nigerians are well informed before casting their votes. I'm however hoping that the two candidates that will emerge from both parties will honor presidential debates. I would love to see them debate each other. Let them tell us how they will fix electricity and so many other things that needs to be fixed in Nigeria. But you guys know that I don't know much. Guess what? I'm just keeping it real. Moving on to Zimbabwe. Oh my God, my God, my God. Gucci Grace, that woman, hey, too much drama. I don't even know where to start, you know. It's now very clear that she wants to run for presidency. Yes, so been under the husband for the past 30-something years. Now the wife will take over. Hey, see me say trouble. And you know, everything has been happening very, very quickly. It was just July of this year that she joined politics. She started from the top. They made her the leader of the ZANU-PF Women's Wing. Hey, see miracle right there. Another miracle is that in 2 months she got her PhD, which will make her a better candidate. You know, they wouldn't just say Madam Grace Mugabe, they will say Dr. Gucci Grace is also a member of our party. You see what I'm saying? Miracles. And now she's already campaigning for presidency. Hey, fast track. I'm telling you, anything is possible in Africa. Now she's been fighting publicly with the present vice president, who is also a woman, by the way, Madam Mujuru. She's accusing the woman of leading a faction that is vying for power. How did you translate that? Maybe she's trying to say that this woman is positioning herself to become the next president after Mugabe, since she's the vice president. And Grace doesn't want to hear that. No. Right now, she's demanding for an apology from the woman. In fact, she's now threatening the woman. Listen to what Madam Grace said. You cannot continue to deny that you lead a faction every day. Wherever you are, go together with your cronies. Go and apologize before it is too late. You know, I'm warning you, because the president is also fed up with this issue. Madam Grace, you know, I wouldn't want to piss off Grace at all, which is why me. I would never say anything bad about Madam Grace. Hey, I don't want her to tell me to go and apologize for anything. And then she said that, I do not think anything good will come out if I, Grace Mugabe, if I mobilize people to go in the street and dump you. My God, did she just say she would dump the vice president? Like, really? How dare you talk to the vice president like that? I know you're the first lady, and so what? No. Somebody needs to see my karate skill, yo. This thing no go move. If not that I'm wearing suit. Now she wants to dump the vice president. Hey, what? This woman is crazy. But you know, I'm not surprised, because many people have been complaining about how she's been seizing people's land, you know? She actually addressed that during a ZANU-PF convention this last week. Let me see what she said. Yes. Nobody will remove me from the farm which I took. Blood will be spilled if anyone attempts to remove me from that farm. Oh God. What is it with this African first ladies and blood shedding? I mean, blood sharing. Is it sharing or shedding?
Those bloods that are sharing will answer.
Did I ask you? It is blood shedding. You don't have. Stop, my first lady, you not do well. No offense, but you cannot change our dictionary. It is still blood shedding. I took that farm personally because even after I told ministers and government officials that I wanted a farm, they did not allocate me land. Instead, they told me that they thought I was joking. So government officials refused to allocate her land, and she decided to go and take it by herself, by fire, by force. Jay! And she's only a first lady. What will happen when this woman becomes the president now? Ooh, la la. There is a God, This is the woman that wants to rule Zimbabwe.
There is God.
Oh, really? I'm about to fire you. I've been telling you, you're on your own. Did I send you? You know, I pity that vice president, Madam Mujuru. I really pity that woman, because right now she's trapped. If she refuses to apologize and she insists that she's not leading any faction, Grace Mugabe has already made up her mind that the woman is leading a faction against Mugabe, and so she can use her influence to kick out this woman, the vice president. And if the woman decides to go and apologize for the sake of peace, even if she's not guilty, well then Grace will say that the woman herself admits to leading a faction and that she came to apologize. You see what I'm saying? So she can still kick her out either way. And once the vice president is out, who do you think will be the next vice president? Grace, of course. She's been positioning herself to take up that post. Yes, now she has a PhD, you know, adding to her resume. And if the fake PhD, I mean. And then if Robert Mugabe dies all of a sudden, or if he steps down, who do you think will become the president? The vice president. Now we are on the same page. You see what I'm saying? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Because what I'm seeing is very scary. So you get it? Yes. See what this woman and her husband have turned Zimbabwe into. They've turned it into a personal estate. A lot of Zimbabweans are like really quiet. I don't understand that. It's like whenever we talk about this, some Zimbabweans actually think that we are trying to bring colonial mentality back to Zimbabwe. No, that's not the case. You guys need to wake up and do something. 30 years under Mugabe should be enough. Why do you have to suck up to the madam as well? But you guys know that I don't know anything. I can only wish you good luck in Zimbabwe. Guess what? I'm just keeping it real. So finally, our girls are coming home. Baba. Wait a minute. Why are those people that have been saying, oh, nobody was kidnapped, they were just making up the story to make Jonathan look bad? Shoo, where are your faces now, eh? Anyway, I am so glad, I'm so happy that the federal government finally reached ceasefire agreement with Boko Haram and that the girls are coming back home. I'm like, yes, yes. I know it took you 6 months, eh? You failed in that aspect. 6 months. Kilemwo, what were you looking at? Why didn't he do this immediately after the girls were kidnapped? I don't understand that. But do you know that some Nigerians are not impressed? They are not impressed though. They said this whole thing is just election strategy. But you know, what do I know? That is none of my business. I'm just glad that they are releasing the girls. Now, one important lesson I'm hoping we would learn is that things can change in Nigeria. We as a people, we can make a huge difference in all African countries. The fact that it took us about 6 months to get the Nigerian government to act tells us that it may just take time, but if we keep pressurizing them, they will eventually do the right thing. So once again, thanks to everyone who stood by these girls, everybody that went out to protest, whether in Nigeria or outside Nigeria. Thank you all for putting pressure on the federal government. Thank you to all the celebrities all over the world who participated in the Bring Back Our Girls protest, including Alicia Keys. Last week, she was at the Nigeria House here in New York to mark 6 months that the girls had been kidnapped. And she actually spoke with Mr. President on phone about getting these girls back. Some Nigerian celebrities, though, it's a shame. It's a big shame that some of you did not say anything. We know those of you that said something. Omatola Jalade, God bless you. All of you that carried a placard and said something. All of you that protested. Thank you, Jare, you now do well. But for some of you, you didn't say anything. You didn't sing about it. You didn't do drama about it. You didn't bring any awareness. You didn't put any pressure on the federal government. It's not good though. It's not good. There is God. Anyway, what do I know? I'm just keeping it real. Moving on to Uganda, I want you guys to meet Eunice Namirembe, a medical doctor who built a 24-hour accessible ambulance call center. Take a look.
It's a community that is deprived. It's deprived of state-of-the-art healthcare. It's deprived of information. There's only one doctor per 25,000 people in Uganda. The Medical Concierge Group is built on a very strong foundation of a team that wants to build a social enterprise to improve health delivery in a very broken health system. So our inspiration lies in using technology to see lives changing. Google Maps, we want to use it especially to map health facilities that we're going to work with the mobile pharmacy and the mobile ambulance. A mother should not die because they do not have information on how to look after themselves and make themselves safe during pregnancy. Aspire to see that at least there will be a doctor and there will be medicine every time someone goes to a health clinic to seek medical services.
How inspiring. Oh my God, I am really inspired by Galidi. I just would like to say that if you're facing a challenge, learn from Eunice. Instead of just complaining about it, think of what you can do to make things better. Hey, learn to think outside the box. She only used Google Maps and look at what she's doing today. So I'm so proud of her. We're also proud of you, Eunice. Keep up the good work. And guess what? I'm just keeping it real. Before I leave today, I'd like to read some of your emails, and the first one is from Igbo Igbinoba. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. And he says, hi Adeola, thank you for reporting about the Air Force pilot, Wing Commander Chimda Edima. It's bad enough that no rescue attempts were made to save him while he was alive, but to blatantly deny him is the lowest that the Nigerian Defense Headquarters can stoop. This begins understanding the Nigerian principle of false image, even in the face of glaring and overwhelming facts and evidence. You're absolutely right, my brother. Thank you so much for writing. Till now, they still have not acknowledged the fact that this Air Force pilot was killed by Boko Haram. There has not been any statement by the presidency acknowledging his bravery and the sacrifice that he made for Nigeria. But thank you so much for writing. Our next email is from Rachel Mbachu from New Brunswick, Canada. She actually sent me a picture of her brother that has been missing, and she wants me to share it with you guys in case anybody says this man. His name is Francis Chidibere Mbachu, and he has a shop at Kwako Aguda in Surulere where he was selling food. According to eyewitnesses, they said after church on Sunday around 1 p.m, he went to his shop and two men came on a bike and asked him to get on the bike. He got on the bike, and that was the last time that people around there saw him. Even my mother has been in and out of the hospital since this incident. She also sent me her phone number as well as her email address. If anybody should come in contact with this guy, please email Rachel Mbachu. So in case Francis Chimbere Mbachu is watching, truly, please just let him know that you are alive. You know, so things like this break my heart. What are the police doing? I mean, since this happened. And then I think about the fact that so many people have disappeared in Nigeria and the police will just keep saying we are doing investigation, we're doing investigation. It breaks my heart. So please, if you ever see this man or you know anyone that could help this family, please contact Rachel. Keep your faith, Rachel, and please let your mom know that we're all standing by her at this time. I'm hoping and praying that someday your brother will come back home. I just realized it's Raphael, not Rachel. I'm deeply sorry. Alright guys, that's all the time that I have for emails today. Please keep sending your emails to adeola.keepingitreal@gmail.com. Alright y'all, it's been real and I'm keeping it real right up in here. Until next week, I'm gonna see y'all later. Peace out.